Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind. And guess what? I am joined back by popular demand. I didn't tell you this actually before we got on here, but you have been requested actually, surprisingly. I'm not surprising to me, I should say. So yeah.
A little surprising to me.
Yeah, no, people have said, you know what? I like Coach Roach. I like he gives a very unique perspective, and they like the cut of your jib. So so it's good to have you back. And so we are here to continue the discussion on draft related content as it comes to the Raptors. And we are here to talk about two particular prospects. So the first prospect is going to be Gradey Dick. The second prospect is going to be Brice Sensabaugh. So, who do you want to talk about first?
Man, you're the host. Let's go with Gradey Dick.
Okay, so he had a very, very good game yesterday. He's going to be playing later on today, as I have it. And what I noticed was he was not just a shooter, but he had some playmaking chops. Now, if you were to put it on a scale of 1 through 5, I don't think he is, bending defenses with his playmaking, but he makes really solid reads. I found, and it's he makes the obvious pass and maybe shows a little bit more. There was one pass. I don't know if you saw the highlights of that game or any tape of that game, but there was one pass where he's at the top of the key and he just swung it down right to a cutting teammate who was right under the hoop, right for the finish. So that was nice. I want to get your thoughts on his offense.
Well, I mean, he's a lights out shooter. I think he shoots about, is he shooting 46% from three this year? Did I read that correctly? Um,
Yeah, so he is basically known as one of the, if not the best shooters in this year's draft. I think he's shooting 40.4%, but he was higher at some points in the season, but he's killing it.
right. And I think the defense, I think he's averaging per 36 minutes. I think it's like nearly two steals per game.
Yeah.
For college, that's pretty good. I guess just it sounds like to me he's just more of a two-way player than what he gets credited for. Like when you're just known as a shooter, it's tough to get known as a defender too at the same time. But I think Gradey Dick is more of a complete player than probably what he gets credited for. Is he going to win Defensive Player of the Year? No, but I do think he's probably the type where his lateral quickness and the discipline is probably good enough to at least keep guys in front of him in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I notice is that, and I think it's a fair knock, is that he is not quite as athletic as some of the other prospects that we've seen, or heck, some of the Raptors that we have on our team.
Mhm.
With that being said, he is fairly positionally sound. I don't see a lot of glaring mistakes. I don't see him seriously getting beat off the dribble a whole bunch of times. And if you look, I mean, it is college, but if you look at his advanced metrics for college, they are all positive, particularly for the defensive end. And he's actually, from the sounds of it, he's been a little bit better on the defensive end than some of the other prospects that we've seen. So I guess I've already kind of talked about what the Raptors are looking for in a prospect, but focusing still on the offensive end, what are the Raptors going to expect out of a six, I believe, 6'8" shooter?
Well, certainly for Nick Nurse, assuming he's still here next year, he's going to have to play defense. That's
Yeah.
one of the criteria. He'll have to play defense. I think too. Just we've seen this. We've seen this team have a lot of guys just not be able to hit open jump shots throughout the year. Now, recently, it's been a lot better. Ever since they've acquired Poeltl, it has been better. I just think Gradey Dick could be a big help in that regards. I mean, you have a lot of guys with similar skill sets. I know you and I have talked about the redundancy on this team.
Yeah.
Gradey Dick doesn't really have that kind of skill set as compared to like a Scotty or a Siakam in that regards. Like he comes in, he's fairly polished offensively for his age. He comes in, he's already got the reputation of going to be a lights out 3-point shooter. I suspect he'll shoot anywhere about 40% from three for his career. He's got good height. and the shooting mechanics look good. It looks like he can create his own shot off the dribble, but also come off screens and hit shots too, which is something we don't see too much from this team in general. So I think that could be a big help to their offense moving forward if they were to pick him.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Fred, and to give credit to Fred for a second, one of the reasons why so many people really like Fred, even though they haven't necessarily been fans of his style of play, is he is a really good what they call movement shooter. So there are times when he commits to it that off ball, he'll be coming off threes, or I guess they also call different things relocation threes as well. He is elite in some of these areas. And so Gradey has shown the chops that it's like, no, he's not just a catch and shoot, but it's like he can do all of these different types of shots beyond just set shooting, which is really, really nice and really, really good to see. So I guess from that end, I think that's something that we sorely needed. I will now kind of counter by saying, what I've noticed is that yes, the passing is better than I would have thought, but as a yes, he can self create, but as a I guess a creation for others, someone who can you're not expecting him to initiate the offense, but as someone who can create for others, it seems to be lacking. I don't know if you've seen anything like that.
From Gradey Dick. Yeah, I mean, I see his assist numbers per 36 minutes are just under two, which that's not great. But he's probably going to have one of those skill sets where he is going to have to be 40% from three. But I think there's potential there because of his length too, and how, like you said, I think Gradey Dick's able to relocate fairly well, and similar to Fred. So certainly the ball movement is something that he'll have to work on. But if he is a great shooter and a pretty good defender in the league, that's good enough. That you got yourself a good basketball player there. Did you get yourself a superstar? Probably not. But when you're picking 15th, rarely do you, or let's just assume that they pick anywhere from 13 to 16, let's say. Typically, finding superstars there are a dime a dozen.
Absolutely. And the thing is that he does a couple other things on offense that I really like. Like he does seem to have a knack for attacking closeouts when the opportunity presents. And some of these set shooters, they don't always do that. They just, they don't know what to do. So he seems to be fairly smart. He seems to have an ability to get inside. When you compare him to some of the other guys that they have a higher upside, and the one thing that you can't take away from him is that he is a really smart basketball IQ player. And so for me, the things that I really like about him, plus his feel for the game, I think the one thing about Gradey Dick that I really appreciate, and I wouldn't have a problem with the Raptors drafting him, is that feel for the game, that touch, and all of that. I think one of the other things about Gradey Dick is that he seems to have he's coming from a place where he would fit on this roster and be an instant upgrade in terms of our bench production.
Oh, absolutely. And let me ask
Yeah.
you something then, in terms of bench production. Hypothetically, Raptors draft Gradey Dick.
Yeah.
Is he in your top eight, top nine?
Yeah, I think whoever you draft, you're not. And this is one of the things that I countered someone with. It's like I don't. There are a few guys where they're that good where it's worth a project, but I want to stay away from projects as much as possible. There are
Yep.
some projects in the draft where if you say if you have a chance to draft an Amon Thompson or an Asar Thompson, it might be their defensive ability is right there already.
Mhm.
And but those are guys that realistically, as much as it would frustrate people, and this is why people need to remember guys like Kuminga on Golden State. You have to be a little bit more patient with some of these prospects if you're going to go that direction. And then you could see how Kuminga, I mean, he has had a down year this year, but last year he contributed to a championship. He
Yep.
did.
Yep.
And so, yeah, getting some of these guys G League minutes either early on or at least experimenting with them in the lineup early on. But I think that Brice, sorry, whoops, Freudian slip. I think Gradey would be someone that you could insert into that top 8 for next year? We can definitely talk about the top 8 either at the end of this episode really quickly or whatever. But yeah, very very good question. And yeah, I think we've talked about the defense and all those things. Would you? How would you feel if the Raptors drafted him?
I'm fine with it because, like you said, um, to me, Gradey Dick isn't that big of a project for me. He's someone I think who come in now and with his skill set would be able to produce. Do I think he's six man on the team? No. I think you're looking anywhere from like the eighth guy to the 10th guy at best. Because we got to remember too, he is still a rookie coming in into the NBA and stuff like that. So,
Mhm.
I do feel that there would be a spot for him in the rotation. But once again, he doesn't play defense. Probably not going to play too much. Nurse likes his guys to
Absolutely.
do a little bit of everything. But I just hope that if they were to draft him, that they will put him in a position to succeed, use him to his strengths as well.
Absolutely. And I think the one reason why I really like a guy with that skill set, although Gradey Dick is not number one on my draft big board or anything like that,
Yeah,
the reason why I'd be happy with getting him is because guess what? We haven't really done a great job of building the tertiary skill sets that are complementary to a Siakam or a Barnes.
yeah,
So I don't care who people like. If you like one or the other, guess what? They're both good playmakers
yeah,
and probably the best playmakers on the team. And so depending on who you are valuing, it doesn't matter because they would like more shooters and they could use more shooters either way. We've seen that in terms of how they stagger lineups. Okay, so sorry to kind of because I know we're on a little bit of a time
yeah.
crunch, but to move really quickly to Brice Sensabaugh. So this is the guy that you are I've watched a little bit more. So do you want to just give me a little preamble of his offense? I've watched a little bit of him, but yeah.
Sure. I'll just give a brief bio of him. He's 6'6". He listed as 6'6". I kind of wonder if he looks a little shorter than that on a camera, but we'll find out. It gets with the combine metrics come out, or measurements. 6'6", 235. He's a big guy for sure for that size too. Um, but he is a bucket. Best way I could describe it. Great shooting mechanics. I like the form. He's very, very strong. Like he's kind of got that little bit of OG in him, where he's just um, he moves well with and without the basketball. I think the handles actually are better than OG's handles um, to be blunt about it. He's got a higher PER than Brandon Miller. Now the usage rate is really, really high because he's playing on Ohio State and they're just not very good this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see the intrigue with him because, you know, he does everything fairly well, but he can really, really score the basketball. That's the biggest thing I've noticed from him. Um, he could shoot the three. He's able to post guys up. He's got a nice fadeaway in the paint. He's a very good athlete. To me, of all the prospects that I've kind of seen in terms of the forwards, to me, he just screams Raptor like from what they have, which maybe in a sense, do we want more of that? But I think what separates him from the others is he can score. He actually can score the basketball. I mean, I'm just looking at his per 36-minute numbers here, like 24 points a game and 8 rebounds. Like in college, that's really difficult to do. That's tough. Um, and I'm just looking at his, the field goal percentage, 48%. That's pretty good when you have a high usage rate of over 30. Actually, his usage rate is 34. Um, he shoots a slightly higher 3-point percentage than Gradey Dick. It's about the same, but it's slightly higher. So just being able to have both of those elements in his game, like good athlete, can shoot the ball, form looks great. He can get his own shot. Um,
Right.
the handles right now look pretty good to me. I suspect when he gets to the league, he'll probably cut down some weight because when you look at him play, like he's a big guy for sure, but I'm just thinking in the NBA, that quickness. Probably gonna have to shed about 10 pounds because if he's 6'6", 225, like that's a good athlete. It's a big athlete to defend. So I see with Sensabaugh that he's not only able to shoot the three, but he can take his guy inside as well and post him up, fade, take guys off the dribble. Like he looks like he's a pretty good player for sure.
Yes, I mean I agree with all of that. I think the other thing too is while a lot of these guys are not necessarily getting to the line a ton, there's a couple guys that we'll get into in the future about that. I think one of the things that I've noticed about his game is that he's doing that offensive efficiency when you compare the usage rate. Gradey Dick is used the usage rate is around 20%, a
Yeah,
little bit higher than 20%. Brice is doing it on what, 34% use,
34%. Yeah,
which is, you know, um,
way
basically
higher than Brandon Miller's.
it's, yeah, so he's basically doing it on like with a Siakam sized role, if people can imagine that, and still shooting 40%. So that is a really good sign. I also as you said, I think you said it correctly, he is a walking bucket. So I think in terms of his self creation, I've said that we ideally would like a 3 level scorer. Although I think that his defense is a little bit less. I don't know his wingspan. That's the only thing I don't
I
know.
don't know either, but that is the concern is with his defense. Because I'm just looking at his defensive win shares. They are lower than Gradey Dick's,
Mm.
and much lower than Brandon Miller's. So
Yes.
that's the concern. It's not to say that he can't play defense. Sometimes if you're in a defensive system, maybe it's not just conducive to his skill set. But just looking at the numbers and the evidence that we do see, the defense is a slight bit of a concern. That's the only thing. Offensively, I think he's there. Defensively, question.
That's a tough thing too, because it's like these players are put in positions where, I mean, and you could say the same to an extent on the NBA, where yes, coaching does play a role into putting guys in the right position, but because college has certain set, like the coaches are there for longer in general, and you know, certain teams kind of are their identity is the coach in a sense,
Yeah,
whereas in the NBA it's not. You kind of know certain teams are like, for example, Kentucky guards come out with a certain skill set, but during the season they actually are in a sense, some of their skill sets are depreciated because they're put in very specific roles and they aren't, you know, allowed to expand their game, or at least to my understanding. You could definitely feel free to counter me if you want. um,
yeah, no, there we go. I mean, like you said with the Kentucky guys, they come out. If you're a guard at Kentucky, like NBA teams like that, because they have such a high success rate with whatever that Calipari does with the guards down there.
yes.
Ohio State was it like? Well, the kid who went 20th in the draft, Brandon for the Spurs, who we would have had that pick, by the way, had we not traded it. But Sensabaugh, Brandon can shoot. Sensabaugh can shoot too. It sounds like Ohio State does pretty good at developing shooters, I guess, in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and sometimes, I mean, as long as he's not a sieve, which I don't think he is a sieve, but you know,
Sounds like he
I
is.
yeah, I don't think he's a sieve, but I think that there's much better, like Case and Wallace. I do think that there are. The fact is he seems to have a decent ability for self creation, but I think that the other important thing is that he also seems to have a better ability to also create for others than a Gradey Dick. Although neither are really great at the creation for others. And the reason why I say as a creation for others is because when your ability to self-create is better, you automatically it opens up more opportunities.
Right.
So maybe with a lower usage rate.
Maybe with a
um,
lower, I mean, clearly once he gets to the NBA, he's not going to be that high. But
no.
when I look at his game, like a great form, elbow to wrist mechanics look really good. He reminds me a little bit of a Mellow and how he can score a little bit that way.
Mm,
Uh, hopefully the defense is not Mellow long term. That'd be my only concern. But he can score. I mean, he's averaging like what was it, 20 per 36. He's averaging 24 points per game. That's pretty darn good in college basketball for a freshman too. I mean, if he went back for a second year, oh my goodness, he'd be, that might be 28 points per game or something like that. So there's
Yeah, what's interesting is that there seems to be more freshmen this year than there was last year. Last year there was a lot more older players in the draft. I might be remembering this wrong, but I just remember distinctly there was a lot of old. It wasn't like a young draft like 2 years ago. But sorry, you were saying.
yeah, no, this draft is the freshman class in this draft. It's really deep.
Yes. One of the other things that's really interesting is I'm gonna put this on screen. So I do check out the Ringer draft NBA guide, and to just to look and see how what I'm seeing and what coach is seeing, how it stacks up with some of the, I guess, the bigger name draft guys. It's not the only ones. I'm gonna put some of the links for some of these players down in the description down below, so definitely check that out. But I'm just gonna say what they were saying about him. So again, they don't know his wingspan, which is funny. It says TBD. But
Yeah.
for Brice Sensabaugh, he's projected at 19th overall. I don't really worry too much about positioning right now, not until after the tournament and the combine. There's a long ways to go, but they essentially say he is a pure bucket getter, and I'm going to put this on the screen, a pure bucket getter who wasn't projected to be a one and done, but who has shined as a freshman scorer. And they say he has shades of TJ Warren. I'm not gonna go through the whole Ringer Draft NBA guide. I'm going to put a link down below and put some of the stuff on the screen, but definitely check that out. Um, Shades of TJ Warren. Now, obviously, they mean maybe closer to bubble TJ Warren, but I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
No, that's fairly accurate when I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And TJ Warren, serviceable NBA player. In the bubble, he looked like Kobe. Um, a lot of injury problems, unfortunately for him, but he did go through a stretch where he was good for 18 to 20 points a game. Um,
Yes.
I guess the question is, do you feel does the organization feel that Sensabaugh can do that? Or is there someone else there that's more higher upside that they would want?
Yeah, and that's I guess that's really the question. So the other question I'll just really quickly ask you about is like when you compare a guy like him and his size, you compare it to like say a Jalen Hood really quickly. And again, these are some of the guys that we're going to get into in future. Who would you prefer?
I think Jalen Hood is more of a guard, combo guard, point guard.
Yeah.
In case of the Raptors, he might be more intriguing. He might be more of what they need than Sensabaugh. Sensabaugh is kind of what they already have, or they have a little bit of him. But once again, Sensabaugh can shoot. He can just get a bucket for you. And we've seen this team like someone like OG who's hurt 20 to 25 games per year. I mean, I think this
Yeah.
guy could, I'm not saying he's going to defend like OG, but I think he can certainly make up the scoring that OG would, um, that OG leaves when he is hurt.
Absolutely. So, Coach, we're getting to the last little stretch of this because again, I'm paying attention to the time,
You're good,
watching the
man.
time.
You're good. You're good.
So, first of all, I'm glad that we were able to go through these things. Um, right now, I think that these are two good prospects. I think we would both be happy with them. Although I think that there are some other guys that we prefer. If they were on the board, if two guys were on the board, I'll just if I could sign you up for a future episode, we will hopefully we will talk about Case and Wallace. I'm hoping, and we can almost do a solo episode just about Case and Wallace and why he would be the perfect Raptors guard in my opinion.
Yeah,
And he
agreed.
he'll be available at our range, but. You asked a question, and I kind of want to get into that just to kind of bring it back full circle to the Raptors and then close out. So, really quickly, you talked about the bench, and so I'm wondering, do you see us, depending on where we end up? Let's say we end up. I don't think it's going to be the 6th seed. I think our prediction of 7, some people suggested 8. I think 7 is still doable but tough. But 7 or 8, let's say you end up with that. My question to you is coming out of that next year, so you have the 15th pick. Are you happy with the potential talent that's available at 15, or would you rather use some of our bench pieces that are more valuable to move up in the draft potentially?
I'm fine with the 14th or 15th pick. Like I think of guys like Devin Booker who were picked around there, or Kawhi I think was around 11th or 13th. I can't remember specifically. Like you can get great value. It's tough to know exactly what a player at that age is going to turn out to be. If I had an offer to trade my pick in one of the bench players, I'll say one of a player that might be slightly redundant from what we already have. If I had that opportunity to move up, definitely going to consider it.
Absolutely. I think there again we'll talk about this another day because it is actually a very interesting conversation. We've talked about it offline and in spaces and stuff like that before, but I believe there is the most redundancy on the bench is with Chris Boucher, Thad, and Boucher. Although Thad is a little bit different than the others
Yeah.
because of his ability to play make and think the game at a higher level. So that's something that's very interesting. We don't have to get into it today because that could be its own thing, a very interesting conversation. I know Raptors fans hate talking about anyone going from this team. Oh my gosh. Whatever
Hey,
will we
you
do?
got to be
Um,
objective.
yeah, well,
Be objective. Try not to be so emotionally invested.
exactly. Well, and at the end of the day, you love the team, but some of these guys are
Yes.
not going to be on the team forever. I mean,
Yeah. You
unless
get
there's some serum, and if there is, then can you hook a brother up? Because, uh, I I feel
yeah.
like
Well, you have to do what's best for the team. I mean,
exactly.
getting Poeltl has really helped out this team. The starting unit now is one of the tops since they've assembled it in the last 8 to 10 games or so. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah,
a little less redundancy.
I think some people are still struggling to enjoy the season, and
Yeah.
even though I've been less hopeful uh leading into the last stretch of the season, and I've been that way since I would say late December, and you've been higher up on this group than I have been. I think the way that people need to start enjoying the season is view the season through 5 game stretches. See how they
Yeah.
do for 5 games. You don't have
Yep.
to like dramatically swing after, but just okay, hey, because like to me, if I look at okay, like how they look, even if they're bad for 5 games, okay, next 5 games, I find that that's a little bit healthier. Um, and so yeah, before we go to parting thoughts, on the note of that sort of thing, I just want to preview, sorry, uh, another episode that I will be dropping soon. It's a little bit different than my normal content, but it still is about athlete mental health, fan interactions, and all of that. So stay tuned, listener, for that. Thank you for the suggestions. I am going to check out, as long as time permits it, I am going to check out all of the guys that you guys have suggested to me, and as well as I need to go through my own list as well. So, are there any parting thoughts, Coach Roach?
Well, whether we have the 15th pick or we somehow trade up for the 8th pick, I still think we're going to get someone of pretty good value added to this team. And like kind of like you said, I think you're right in terms of viewing this team every 5 games to see what you got. I remember the Minnesota game earlier this year. I was done with this team. I saw enough. But once they
Which
acquired
one?
Pearl, the Minnesota game with D'Angelo Russell got Fred on the hook, and basically
Oh
Minnesota beat
yes,
us
yeah,
without
yeah, yeah.
Brown and
Where
Gobert. And you're just like,
uh, did Siakam kick it out to OG and then
yes,
OG? Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I actually like that. I like that play too. I thought I saw
yeah.
nothing wrong with that. But once they get Pirtle, this changes everything for the next 2 years because they traded the draft pick. So we know this team is going to try to compete at least for the next 2 years. And then afterwards, well, Scotty, assuming he's here, which I think he will be, he's going to be in his prime then. So I just see this team as they're going to try to compete. They're not going to do the rebuild stuff for better or for worse, I guess. So moving forward, this is kind of what we got, and then we'll see in the off season what we have coming next season.
The other thing too is that really quickly with Barnes, some people who are his biggest supporters have mentioned this and then seemingly have forgotten this, is that if you don't build and prove that you want to win with him early on, why on earth would he stay? It becomes
Well,
extremely hard and the pressure gets put on you. It only takes, once he signs that next deal, then it's like, okay, well, Pat Riley's next thing you see Pat Riley and a Walker in the stands, right?
yeah.
and with his bag of rings and stuff like that. And the guys from Miami, that's all it takes. So I don't know what the best route to take. I agree that there probably needs to be changes made. What those changes are, we will see. But I do think that you have to try to win at least a couple times, or try to show that you are trying to compete throughout the course of his young budding career.
Oh, absolutely. And look, Scotty's a guy we've seen it ever since Poeltl showed up. Him and Poeltl, this probably gets underrated, but they have an amazing connection together right now.
So
You
did
know,
you say Poeltl or Jokic?
Poeltl.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, oh,
Because
you
he's
got me there.
passing super well.
Yeah,
It's
no, but
really impressive.
Scotty, he is finding Poeltl on a lot of open looks inside on post up. But in the other game, I had shared the link on Twitter.
Yeah.
Poeltl found Barnes on the post up, which was a really, really it was a mismatch. So I agree with you. I think Scotty will have pieces at least for the next few years moving forward. And then but there probably will come a time though where it's like, is this the guy for us? I mean, is he going to be number one? Because if he is, then there's going to be some changes in the next couple of years.
I mean, either way, the fact that they got a big man who learned under Tim Duncan and who can teach, whether it is Barnes, Koloko, heck, Siakam, you name it,
Yeah,
footwork, that he probably learned under Tim Duncan, that's going to make everyone better. There's
yeah.
not a single person. I mean, again, we could go on and on about Poeltl, the way that he presents himself on rolls, like his deep post positioning on that. I know which one where you were saying, because Barnes will is really good in the open court, but will hit Poeltl sometimes, and Poeltl is just able to seal off his man and
Yeah.
just create this big body that like basically no one else can currently do on this team. And it's first of all, it's just really impressive because it's like, where's the other guy? You're looking at the screen, the other guys, and it's like we haven't had that in a second, where a guy like literally is like blocking off the guy behind him, but also the fact that to recognize the read and the pass and just to make it right away. We'll see as this team pushes for the play-in. I think it's really exciting to see at least whatever will happen. I think I said the other day, is like, the one thing that people can't say about this Raptors season is it hasn't been exciting.
It's been a lot of things.
It's been
Exciting is
emotional. It's been exciting, a
exciting is
roller
one of
coaster.
them.
It's been, it's been dramatic. It's been heartbreaking, happy. It's had the whole gamut. It's like the best movie you've ever seen.
Yeah, I think they are going to end on a higher note, though.
I think
Whether
so too.
that's the play-in, the playoffs, I don't know, but
Mhm.
I think Pirtle just makes this team better. Like, who knew someone 7 foot would might be a little bit more effective inside than someone 6'9"? Who knew that?
Exactly. And hey, look, they're being a little bit more conservative and actually using a little bit of drop coverage. Who would have ever thought that that would have helped?
Chicken
Um,
Little, the sky is falling.
Exactly. So, with that being said, Coach Roach, it's always great to have you on. Everyone, like, comment, and subscribe down below. I will leave the links that are appropriate. Coach Roach, do you want to tell people where they can find you, or do you want me to put it down below?
You can find me at Coach Roach on Twitter. I'm usually on Raptors Live TV afterwards. Sometimes I host my own space as well, or I join a few spaces, and it's always great to chat with other basketball fanatics and/or Raptor fans, or both at the same time. So
Absolutely. All right.
basketball doesn't stop.
It does not. It's a 24, well, maybe not 24 hours, but close to 24-hour. It's definitely 365 a sport at this point in time, a global game. And yeah, everyone, thank you so much and take care.